Maya had always been different from other kids. While her friends were busy with parties and social media, she spent her nights on the rooftop of the university science building, staring through a massive telescope. At 22, she was already working on her master's degree in space science, studying how when stars dance around each other millions of miles away. Her backpack was always heavy with thick books about space, and her laptop screen was covered with numbers and charts that looked like a foreign language to most people. But to Maya, these numbers told beautiful stories about distant worlds and burning suns that had been dancing together since before humans ever walked the earth. The university campus was huge, with tall brick buildings that seemed to touch the clouds. Maya knew every corner of the science building, from the basement labs to the observatory on the roof. She had her own little corner on the 5th floor, where she could spread out her research papers and work in peace. The janitor, old Mr. Peterson, would always wave at her when he made his rounds at midnight, used to seeing her hunched over her computer with a cold cup of coffee by her side. 3 floors below Maya's usual spot, in the engineering section, Alex was having his own late-night adventures. At 24, he was the guy everyone came to when they needed help with impossible math problems, or when their computer programs crashed at the worst possible moment. Alex spent his evenings designing spaceships that existed only in his imagination, and on his computer screen, his desk was an organized mess of sketches, computer parts, and empty energy drink cans. On his computer monitor, colorful 3D models of rockets rotated slowly, each one designed to carry people to planets that seemed impossibly far away. Alex dreamed of the day when his designs might actually blast off from Earth and carry explorers to places no human had ever been before. The 2 students had walked past each other in the hallways dozens of times without really noticing. Maya was usually looking down at her phone, checking data from space telescopes, while Alex was always carrying rolled-up blueprints under his arm. Lost in thoughts about engine designs and fuel calculations. Everything changed on a cold Tuesday night in October. A power outage hit the entire campus just as Maya was finishing up her observations for the night. The lights went out with a sudden click, leaving the whole building in complete darkness. Emergency lighting kicked in, but it was dim and made everything look scary and unfamiliar. Maya had been on her way down from the observatory when the lights died. She found herself stuck in the main hallway on the 3rd floor, feeling around the walls with her hands. The emergency lights cast strange shadows that danced on the walls like ghosts. At the same moment, Alex was coming up from the basement lab, carrying a heavy box of computer equipment. When the lights went out, he nearly dropped everything. He managed to feel his way to the same hallway where Maya was standing, both of them blinking in the dim emergency lighting like confused owls. "Hey," Maya called out softly, her voice echoing in the empty hallway. "Are you stuck here too?" "Yeah," Alex replied, setting down his heavy box with a thud. "I was just heading up to test some software, but I guess that's not happening tonight." They could barely see each other in the weak emergency lighting, but something about being trapped together in the darkness made talking easy. Maya sat down on the floor, leaning against the wall, and Alex joined her, grateful to rest his tired arms. "So what keeps you here so late?" Maya asked, genuinely curious. She had seen other students working late, but something about Alex seemed different. Alex laughed, a warm sound that echoed softly in the hallway. "I'm trying to figure out how to get people to other planets without them dying on the way there." Pretty normal Tuesday night stuff, right? Maya's eyes widened, even though Alex couldn't see her expression in the darkness. "Wait, you're working on space travel. That's incredible." "I'm studying navigation using binary star systems. I'm trying to figure out how spaceships could use twin stars like lighthouses to find their way across the galaxy." For the next few minutes, they sat in comfortable silence, both processing this unexpected connection. Here they were, two people who had been working in the same building for months, both dreaming about space, and they had never met. "Can I tell you something weird?" Maya said eventually. "I've always felt like the stars are trying to tell us something important, but we're just not smart enough to understand their language yet." Alex nodded in the darkness, even though Maya couldn't see him. That's not weird at all. Sometimes when I'm designing a new engine, I feel like I'm trying to solve a puzzle that the universe left for us to figure out. Like maybe we're supposed to leave Earth and explore, as their eyes adjusted to the dim lighting. They began to make out each other's faces. Maya had long black hair pulled back in a messy ponytail, and her eyes seemed to sparkle even in the poor lighting. Alex had kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses, and when he smiled, his whole face lit up. The power stayed out for 3 hours. During that time, Maya and Alex discovered they had more in common than just their love of space. They both preferred working late at night when the building was quiet. They both lived on instant ramen and determination. They both had parents who worried they were spending too much time with books and not enough time with people their own age. When the lights finally came back on, flooding the hallway with bright fluorescent lighting, both of them blinked like they were waking up from a dream. The spell wasn't broken, though. If anything, seeing each other clearly for the first time made the connection feel even more real. "I should probably get going," Maya said, but she made no move to stand up. "Yeah, me too," Alex agreed, also staying exactly where he was. They exchanged phone numbers and promised to meet for coffee the next day. As they finally gathered their things and headed in opposite directions, both of them couldn't stop smiling. Maya climbed the stairs back to the observatory, but instead of looking through her telescope at distant stars, she found herself thinking about the person she had just met. For years, she had been focused on things millions of miles away. But tonight, the most interesting discovery had been sitting right next to her in a dark hallway. Alex made it back to his lab, but his rocket design suddenly seemed less important than the conversation he had just had. He had spent years imagining what it would be like to explore the universe, but he had never imagined having someone to explore it with. Neither of them got much work done that night, but neither of them cared. Sometimes the most important discoveries happen when you're not even looking for them. That first coffee date turned into 2, then 5, then Maya and Alex stopped counting. Every Tuesday, they met at the small cafe near the physics building, sharing stories about their research over steaming mugs and stale pastries. What started as friendship quickly grew into something deeper. Maya would bring printouts of her latest star charts, spreading them across the tiny cafe table like treasure maps. Alex would sketch rocket designs on napkins, explaining how different engines could push spacecraft faster and farther than ever before. Other students probably thought they were the weirdest couple on campus, but they didn't care. "Look at this," Maya said one afternoon, pointing to a cluster of dots on her computer screen. "These stars have been orbiting each other for billions of years. They're like cosmic dance partners that never get tired." Alex leaned closer, his shoulder touching hers as he studied the data. "What if we could use that dance? What if a spacecraft could ride the gravitational waves between them?" That simple question sparked something incredible. Maya's eyes lit up as she realized what Alex was suggesting. Her navigation research wasn't just about understanding how stars moved. It could actually help real spaceships find their way across the galaxy. They started spending even more time together, not just as boyfriend and girlfriend, but as research partners. Maya would stay late in Alex's engineering lab, helping him understand how her star navigation could work with his propulsion systems. Alex would climb up to the observatory, learning to read star charts and understand the mathematics behind Maya's calculations. Their professors started noticing. Dr. Williams, Maya's advisor, pulled her aside after class one day. "Your recent work has been exceptional," she said with a knowing smile. "I think collaboration suits you." Alex's advisor, Professor Chen, was more direct. "Whatever you're doing differently, keep doing it. Your engine designs have become much more practical lately." The truth was, they made each other better. Maya's theoretical knowledge gave Alex's practical designs a solid foundation in real physics. Alex's engineering skills helped Maya see how her research could actually be used to build real spacecraft. They wrote their first research paper together during winter break. While their friends went home for the holidays, Maya and Alex stayed on the nearly empty campus. working 18-hour days in the library. They survived on vending machine sandwiches and determination, taking breaks only to walk around the snowy campus and talk through difficult problems. I never thought I'd find someone who gets excited about orbital mechanics, Maya said one evening as they walked past the frozen pond behind the student center. I never thought I'd find someone who makes math feel like poetry, Alex replied, taking her gloved hand in his. Their paper was accepted by the International Journal of Space Sciences 3 months later. The title was Boring Binary Star Systems, as navigation references for deep space propulsion, but to them, it represented something magical. It was proof that their love story was also becoming a scientific partnership. Success brought new challenges. As they approached graduation, job offers started rolling in. Maya received an invitation to join a research team in California studying exoplanets. Alex got an offer from a private rocket company in Florida. The distance between them would be thousands of miles. They spent weeks avoiding the topic, pretending the problem would solve itself. But finally, on a warm spring evening, while stargazing from the observatory roof, they had to face reality. We could try long distance, Maya said quietly, not really believing her own words. For how long? Alex asked. These aren't temporary jobs. These are careers. They sat in silence, watching the International Space Station pass overhead like a tiny moving star. Both of them were thinking the same thing after finding each other. How could they possibly choose between love and their dreams? The answer came from an unexpected source. Maya's advisor mentioned during a routine meeting that NASA was hiring for their new moon program. They need people with your exact skills, Dr. Williams said. Navigation specialists and propulsion engineers, you should both apply. That night, Maya practically ran to Alex's lab. She found him hunched over his computer, probably designing another impossible engine. NASA, she said, out of breath from running across campus. Alex looked up, confused. What about NASA? They're hiring. Both of our specialties. Same location, same program. Alex's face went through about 5 different expressions into seconds: confusion, understanding, hope, doubt, and finally, a grin that lit up the whole room. The application process was brutal. Maya had to submit 3 research papers, complete a written exam that made her college finals look easy, and survive a video interview with some of the smartest people she'd ever met. Alex faced similar challenges. Plus, he had to present his engine designs to a panel of engineers who had actually built spacecraft. They helped each other prepare, conducting practice interviews in Maya's dorm room and reviewing each other's application essays until they could recite them from memory. Some nights, the stress was overwhelming. Maya would have panic attacks about the interview questions, and Alex would stay awake worrying that his designs weren't good enough. What if only one of us gets accepted? Maya asked one night, voicing the fear they'd both been avoiding. Then that person takes the job, and we figure out the rest later, Alex said. Though his voice wavered slightly, we can't both give up our dreams just because we're scared. The waiting was the hardest part. NASA said they'd notify applicants within 6 weeks, but 6 weeks felt like 6 years. Maya threw herself into finishing her thesis, while Alex spent extra hours perfecting his final project, a scale model of his ion propulsion engine that actually worked. They were in Maya's dorm room, supposedly studying but actually just staring at their phones when the emails arrived. Both of their phones buzzed at exactly 3:47 p.m. on a Thursday. Maya opened her email first. Congratulations, it began. She screamed so loudly that her roommate came running from the next room, thinking something was wrong. Alex was staring at his phone screen, not moving. For a terrifying moment, Maya thought he hadn't gotten in. Then he looked up at her with tears in his eyes and the biggest smile she'd ever seen. We did it, he whispered. We did it, Maya repeated, and then they were both crying and laughing, and hugging each other so tightly that Maya's roommate took a picture because, as she said later, you'd have looked like you just won the lottery. In a way, they had. They won the chance to work on humanity's return to the moon, and they'd won the chance to do it together, as they celebrated that night with pizza and cheap champagne. They knew their real adventure was just beginning. Neither of them could sleep that night. They lay awake talking about what it would be like to work for NASA, to see their designs and calculations turn into real missions that would carry real people back to the moon and maybe, someday, to Mars. 2 years ago, I was just a girl with a telescope, Maya said softly. 2 years ago, I was just a guy with crazy ideas about rocket engines, Alex replied. And now? Alex was quiet for a moment, thinking. Now we're going to help humanity reach for the stars. Outside their window, those same stars twinkled in the darkness, no longer seeming quite so far away. Houston in August was nothing like the cool mountain air of Colorado. The humidity hit Maya and Alex like a wall the moment they stepped off the plane. But they barely noticed. They were too excited, too nervous, and too busy staring out the taxi window at the city that would become their new home. NASA Johnson Space Center looked exactly like it did in movies, but somehow bigger and more impressive in real life. The giant American flag fluttered in the Texas breeze, and everywhere they looked, there were people who had dedicated their lives to pushing humanity beyond Earth's boundaries. Their first day was overwhelming. Maya was assigned to Building 30, home of Mission Control, where she joined a team of 12 navigation specialists. Her new colleagues had impressive backgrounds, former Air Force pilots, mathematicians who had worked on the Mars rover missions, and engineers who had helped design the International Space Station. Alex found himself in Building 9, where the next-generation lunar landers were being developed. His team was smaller, but just as intimidating. These were people who had built things that had actually left Earth and landed on other worlds. His first meeting involved looking at blueprints for a spacecraft that would carry astronauts back to the moon's surface for the first time in over 50 years. The work was harder than anything they had done in college. Maya's day started at 6 a.m. with trajectory calculations that had to be perfect down to the smallest decimal. One mistake in her math could mean the difference between a successful moon landing and a spacecraft flying off into deep space forever. Alex's schedule was even more intense. Building and testing rocket engines meant long days in clean rooms, wearing protective suits and handling equipment worth millions of dollars. Every component had to work perfectly, because there were no second chances once a spacecraft left Earth. They barely saw each other for the first month. Maya would leave their small apartment before sunrise, and Alex wouldn't get home until after dark. They passed each other in the hallway like tired ships in the night, sharing quick kisses and promises to spend more time together once work calmed down. But work never really calmed down at NASA. There was always another deadline, another test, another critical decision that needed to be made immediately. Maya found herself working through weekends, double-checking calculations that would guide astronauts safely to the moon. Alex spent countless hours in the testing facility, watching his engine designs get put through simulations that pushed them to their absolute limits. The pressure started affecting their relationship. Simple conversations became arguments about who forgot to buy groceries or who left dishes in the sink. Maya felt like Alex didn't understand how stressful her navigation work was. Alex felt like Maya didn't appreciate how physically demanding his testing schedule had become. Things came to a head one evening in November. Maya had been working on a particularly difficult trajectory problem for 3 days straight, surviving on coffee and determination. She came home to find Alex asleep on the couch, still wearing his work clothes, with technical manuals scattered around him like fallen leaves. She sat down next to him and started crying, not from sadness, but from exhaustion and frustration, and the overwhelming feeling that they were losing each other in pursuit of their dreams. Alex woke up to find Maya sobbing quietly next to him, without saying a word. He pulled her close and held her while she cried out months of accumulated stress. "I miss you," Maya whispered against his shoulder. "I miss you too," Alex replied. "I feel like we're living parallel lives instead of sharing one life together." That conversation changed everything. They realized that working for NASA didn't mean they had to sacrifice their relationship. It meant they needed to be smarter about protecting it. They established new rules. Tuesday nights were sacred. No work, no matter what deadline was approaching. They would cook dinner together and talk about anything except space missions and rocket engines. Saturday mornings meant long walks around Clear Lake, the body of water near Johnson Space Center, where they could remember why they fell in love with each other. And with the idea of exploring the cosmos, most importantly, they started sharing their work challenges with each other again. When Maya was struggling with a navigation problem, Alex would listen and ask questions that helped her see the solution from a different angle. When Alex's engine tests weren't producing the results he expected, Maya would help him work through the mathematics behind the physics. Their colleagues started noticing the change. Maya's supervisor, a stern woman named Dr. Rodriguez who had worked on Apollo missions decades earlier, pulled Maya aside one day. "Whatever you and your boyfriend did to fix your attitude, keep doing it," she said with a rare smile. "Your work has been exceptional lately." Alex's team leader, a soft-spoken engineer named Jim who had helped design the space shuttle, made a similar observation. "You seem more focused," he told Alex, "more creative. It's like you remember why you wanted to do this work in the first place." The truth was, they had remembered. Being at NASA wasn't just about individual achievement. It was about being part of something bigger than themselves. And doing it together made every challenge feel manageable. Their first major breakthrough came in March. Maya's navigation team was struggling with a problem that had been bothering them for months. How could they guide a spacecraft to the moon's South Pole, where NASA planned to establish a permanent base, when that region was mostly in shadow and traditional navigation landmarks weren't visible? Maya brought the problem home one Tuesday night, breaking their no-work rule because she was so frustrated. Alex listened as she explained the challenge, and then asked a simple question that changed everything. "What if you don't need to see the landmarks?" he said. "What if you use the gravitational signatures instead?" Maya stared at him for a long moment. Then she grabbed her laptop and started typing furiously. Alex's question had sparked an idea that combined her binary star research from college with the practical challenges of lunar navigation. The solution she developed revolutionized how NASA approached moon missions. Instead of relying only on visual navigation, spacecraft could use the gravitational patterns created by the moon's uneven mass distribution to guide themselves to precise landing spots. Alex's breakthrough came 2 months later, inspired by one of Maya's navigation solutions. He realized that the same mathematical principles Maya used to plot spacecraft trajectories could be applied to optimize fuel consumption in his rocket engines. His new engine design was 20% more efficient than anything NASA had previously developed. That improvement meant astronauts could stay on the moon longer, carry more equipment, and have a larger safety margin for their return trip to Earth. By the end of their first year at NASA, Maya and Alex had both become essential members of their teams. More importantly, they had learned how to balance their intense careers with their relationship. Their small Houston apartment became a sanctuary filled with star charts, engine blueprints, and photos from their college days. They had a telescope on their tiny balcony, and on clear nights, they would sit outside and look up at the moon, knowing that their work was bringing humanity one step closer to returning there. "Do you ever miss the simplicity of college?" Maya asked one evening as they watched the International Space Station pass overhead. Alex considered the question. "Sometimes," he admitted, "but I wouldn't trade this for anything. We're not just studying space anymore. We're actually preparing to go there." Maya smiled and took his hand. Together, Alex agreed. Above them, the stars seemed to twinkle a little brighter, as if the universe itself was approving of their journey from starry-eyed students to the engineers and scientists who would help carry humanity to the moon and beyond. They had no way of knowing that their biggest challenge and greatest triumph were still ahead of them, waiting in the darkness of space like distant stars they hadn't discovered yet. 2 years at NASA had changed Maya and Alex in ways they never expected. They walked differently now, with the confidence of people who had seen their wildest dreams become daily reality. Maya's navigation systems were being used on real missions, and Alex's engine improvements had made it possible for astronauts to stay in space longer than ever before. The call came on an ordinary Wednesday morning in June. Maya was in the middle of reviewing trajectory calculations when her supervisor, Dr. Rodriguez, knocked on her office door with an expression Maya had never seen before, excited, nervous, and proud all at the same time. "There's a meeting in conference room A in 10 minutes. Dr. Rodriguez said, bring your lunar South Pole. Navigation files. All of them." Maya's heart started racing. Conference room A was where the big announcements happened. She grabbed her laptop and practically ran down the hallway, her mind spinning through possibilities. Had something gone wrong with her navigation system? Was she in trouble? Alex received a similar mysterious summons from his team leader. Within 15 minutes, they found themselves sitting across from each other in the same conference room, surrounded by NASA's most senior engineers and mission planners. The tension in the air was thick enough to cut with a knife. Director Harrison, a tall woman with silver hair who rarely left her executive office, stood at the front of the room with a presentation remote in her hand. Maya had only seen her from a distance before, and being in the same room felt like meeting a celebrity. "Ladies and gentlemen," Director Harrison began, "today we're announcing the crew and mission parameters for Artemis 4, our most ambitious lunar mission since Apollo 17. Maya felt Alex's eyes on her from across the table, but she couldn't look away from the screen at the front of the room. This was the mission they had all been working toward, the culmination of years of preparation and innovation. Artemis 4 will establish our first permanent research station on the lunar surface." Director Harrison continued, "The crew will spend 6 months on the moon, conducting experiments that will prepare us for eventual missions to Mars." The room was completely silent except for the hum of the air conditioning. Maya realized she was holding her breath. The navigation system for this mission will be based on the gravitational mapping technology developed by our own Maya Rodriguez Chen's team. Maya's heart nearly stopped. Her name, spoken aloud in the most important meeting of her career. The extended life, support, and mobility systems will utilize the efficiency improvements pioneered by Alex Chen's propulsion group. Now Alex looked like he might faint. Maya wanted to reach across the table and grab his hand, but they were surrounded by NASA's leadership, and she forced herself to sit still and professional. Director Harrison clicked to the next slide, which showed a timeline stretching from now until launch day, 18 months away. "This mission requires the absolute best of what we have to offer. The navigation challenges are unlike anything we've attempted before. The engineering requirements push our technology to its limits." Maya's mind was already racing ahead to the technical challenges. Navigating to the moon's south pole meant dealing with areas that spent months in complete darkness. Her gravitational mapping system would have to work perfectly, with no room for error. Alex was thinking about the life support systems that would keep astronauts alive for 6 months, in one of the most hostile environments imaginable. Every component would need backup systems, and those backup systems would need backups. Over the following weeks, their workload tripled. Maya's team expanded from 12 people to 30. With specialists brought in from universities and private companies around the world. Her small office was replaced with a massive workspace filled with computer monitors, star charts, and 3D models of the lunar surface. Alex found himself leading a team of 40 engineers, all working to perfect systems that had never been tested for such long-duration missions. They worked 18-hour days, pushing every component beyond its normal limits to ensure nothing would fail when astronauts were depending on it. The pressure was unlike anything they had experienced before during their college days. The worst consequence of a mistake was a bad grade. Now, errors could mean the difference between life and death for the astronauts who would trust their systems. Maya developed a nervous habit of triple-checking every calculation, even one she had verified dozens of times before. Alex started having dreams about system failures, waking up in the middle of the night with ideas for additional safety measures. Their Tuesday night dinners became working sessions, with laptop computers and technical manuals covering their kitchen table. They would order takeout and spend hours talking through problems, using each other as sounding boards for solutions to challenges that had never been solved before. What if we lose communication with Earth for more than 12 hours? Maya asked. One evening, picking at her Chinese food while staring at navigation charts. The backup navigation has to be completely autonomous, Alex replied. Not looking up from his own work. No human input required. Your gravitational mapping system needs to work, even if every other system fails. These conversations, which might have seemed like work to anyone else, felt like the most intimate moments of their relationship. They were sharing their deepest fears and biggest hopes, working together to solve problems that could determine the future of human space exploration. The first major test came 8 months before launch. Maya's navigation system would guide an unmanned test mission to the exact spot where the Artemis IV crew would eventually land. If the test failed, they would have to start over with a completely different approach. Maya barely slept for 3 days before the test. Alex found her in her office at 2 a.m., staring at computer simulations and drinking her 5th cup of coffee. It's going to work, he said, sitting down next to her. How can you be so sure? Maya asked, her voice shaky with exhaustion and stress. Because it's your system, Alex said simply. And you don't make mistakes when it matters. The test was scheduled for 6:47 a.m. on a Tuesday. Maya and Alex stood in mission control, surrounded by dozens of engineers and mission planners, watching as their work was put to the ultimate test. The spacecraft launched perfectly, following Maya's calculated trajectory with precision that amazed even her. For 3 days, they tracked its journey across the 240,000 miles between Earth and the Moon, watching as every navigation checkpoint was hit exactly on schedule. The landing was flawless. The spacecraft touched down within 50 feet of the target location, in a region of the Moon that no human-made object had ever visited before. Mission Control erupted in cheers and applause. Maya felt tears streaming down her face as she realized that her navigation system, the one that had started as college research about dancing binary stars, had just guided a spacecraft to land on another world. Alex was grinning so widely that his face hurt. His efficiency improvements had allowed the test mission to carry twice as much equipment as originally planned, proving that the Artemis IV crew would have everything they needed for their 6-month stay. That night, they celebrated at their favorite restaurant near the Space Center. Other diners probably thought they were just another young couple having dinner, but Maya and Alex felt like they were carrying the weight and excitement of humanity's next great adventure. 18 more months, Maya said, raising her glass of wine in a toast. 18 more months until we send people back to the Moon using our work, Alex agreed, clinking his glass against hers. As they drove home through the Houston traffic, Maya looked up through the sunroof at the Moon, now visible as a thin crescent in the darkening sky. In 18 months, that distant world would become humanity's second home, and she and Alex would be the ones who made it possible. The stars that aligned in ways they never could have imagined. When they first met in that dark hallway years ago, their love story had become humanity's story, and their dreams were about to carry our species to the stars. Launch day arrived with the kind of clear, perfect sky that seemed designed by the universe itself for making history. Maya and Alex stood in the VIP viewing area at Kennedy Space Center, their hands clasped tightly together as they watched the final preparations for Artemis IV. The massive rocket stood gleaming white against the blue Florida sky, nearly 400 feet tall and powerful enough to escape Earth's gravity and carry 6 astronauts to the Moon. Somewhere inside that towering structure were Maya's navigation computers and Alex's life support systems, the culmination of everything they had worked for since that first meeting in a dark college hallway. Maya wore the same lucky earrings she had worn during her college thesis defense. Alex had on his grandfather's watch, the one that had timed his first rocket experiments as a kid in his backyard. They were surrounded by NASA officials, politicians, and journalists. But in that moment, it felt like they were the only 2 people in the world. T-minus 10 minutes and counting. The voice from Mission Control crackled through the speakers around the viewing area. Maya's stomach was doing backflips for months. She had run simulations and checked calculations, but now there was nothing left to do except watch and hope. 6 human lives would depend on her navigation system working perfectly for the next 6 months. Alex was thinking about Commander Lisa Park, the mission leader he had worked with during training sessions. She was a former Air Force pilot with 2 kids back in Houston, and she had told Alex that his life support improvements meant she could focus on the science, instead of worrying about basic survival. T-minus 5 minutes and counting. The crowd around them grew quieter, everyone lost in their own thoughts about what this moment meant. This wasn't just another rocket launch. This was humanity's return to the moon. As permanent residents, not just visitors. Maya thought about her parents, watching from their living room in Colorado. Her father, a high school math teacher, had always encouraged her love of numbers and patterns. Her mother, a nurse, had taught her that the most important work was helping other people achieve their dreams. Alex remembered his grandmother, who had passed away the previous year. She had been born before humans had ever left Earth, and she had lived to see people walking on the International Space Station. "You're going to help people touch the stars," she had told him shortly before she died. T-minus 60 seconds. The rocket began its final automated sequence, computers checking and double-checking every system in the span of heartbeats. Maya knew that somewhere in that electronic symphony, her navigation programs were confirming their readiness to guide the spacecraft across the void. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6. Alex squeezed Maya's hand so tightly that her fingers went numb, but she didn't mind. They had dreamed of this moment for so long that it almost didn't feel real. 3, 2, 1. Ignition. The rocket lifted off with a sound unlike anything they had ever experienced. It wasn't just noise, it was power made audible, the sound of humans refusing to accept the limitations of gravity and atmosphere. Flames brighter than the sun pushed the spacecraft away from Earth, and Maya felt tears streaming down her face as she watched their life's work disappear into the morning sky. For the next 3 days, Maya barely left mission control. She tracked every milestone of the journey to the moon, watching as her navigation system guided the spacecraft through the complex dance of orbital mechanics that would deliver the crew safely to the lunar surface. Alex spent those same 3 days in the life support monitoring room, surrounded by screens showing the status of every system keeping the astronauts alive. Oxygen levels, water recycling, temperature control, waste management, all the unglamorous but essential technologies that made survival possible in the vacuum of space. The landing was scheduled for Thursday at 2:17 p.m. Houston time. Maya sat at her console in mission control, headset on, watching as her navigation system guided the lunar lander through its final approach to the moon's south pole. Altitude 1,000 feet and descending. Commander Park's voice crackled through the speakers. "Navigation is spot on. We can see the landing site clearly." Maya felt her heart pounding as the numbers on her screen counted down. 800 feet, 600, 400. This was the moment when years of calculations and simulations would either work perfectly or fail catastrophically. Altitude 100 feet, 50 feet, 20 feet. Contact. Mission control exploded in cheers and applause. Maya ripped off her headset and spun round in her chair, looking for Alex in the crowd of celebrating engineers. She found him pushing through the crowd toward her, his face lit up with the biggest smile she had ever seen. They hugged in the middle of mission control, surrounded by people who had worked just as hard and cared just as much as they did. But in that moment, Maya and Alex felt like they were alone with their triumph. To college students who had somehow helped humanity take its next giant leap. The mission was a complete success. For 6 months, the Artemis IV crew lived and worked on the moon, conducting experiments that would pave the way for future missions to Mars. Maya's navigation system worked flawlessly, guiding supply missions and scientific equipment to the lunar base with precision that exceeded everyone's expectations. Alex's life support improvements meant the crew could spend more time outside the base, exploring regions of the moon that had never been studied up close. They collected samples, conducted experiments, and sent back data that would revolutionize humanity's understanding of our closest cosmic neighbor. But the real victory came 9 months after launch, when NASA announced the selection of teams for the first human mission to Mars. Maya was chosen to lead the navigation group that would guide humanity to another planet. For the first time in history, Alex was selected to design the life support systems that would keep astronauts alive during the 9-month journey to Mars and their 2-year stay on the Martian surface. The announcement came during a ceremony at Johnson Space Center with the same director Harrison who had first told them about Artemis 4. Maya and Alex sat in the front row, holding hands and trying to process the fact that their love story had somehow become humanity's next chapter. 5 years ago, you were college students with big dreams, Director Harrison said, looking directly at them. Today, you're the team that will carry our species to Mars. The future of human space exploration literally depends on the work you'll do together. That evening, they walked around Clear Lake just like they had done hundreds of times before. But everything felt different. The moon, now home to a permanent human research station built using their technology, seemed closer and more friendly. Mars, visible as a red dot near the horizon, no longer felt impossibly far away. Do you ever think about that power outage? Maya asked as they stopped to watch the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and pink. Every day, Alex replied. If the lights hadn't gone out, we might have walked past each other for the rest of college and never met. Maya smiled and leaned against his shoulder. Maybe the universe knew we were supposed to find each other. Maybe it knew that together we could do things that neither of us could do alone. 2 years later, they stood in their backyard in Houston, pointing out constellations to their infant daughter, Luna. The little girl had been born just as the Artemis 4 crew was returning from their historic mission, and she seemed to have inherited her parents' fascination with the night sky. Luna's first word wasn't mama or dada, it was star, spoken while reaching toward the twinkling lights that filled the Texas sky. Maya and Alex looked at each other and laughed, realizing that their daughter would grow up in a world where humans live on multiple planets, where the moon was a second home, and where Mars was the next destination for human exploration. Their love story had started with two people looking up at the night sky and dreaming of touching the stars. It continued with a family preparing humanity for its greatest adventure, one calculation and one engine design at a time. As they tucked Luna into her crib that night, Maya and Alex looked out the nursery window at the stars that had brought them together. Tomorrow, they would return to work on the Mars mission, designing systems that would carry humans farther from Earth than anyone had ever traveled before. But tonight, they were just a family, grateful for the cosmic coincidence that had brought them together and for the opportunity to help write humanity's next chapter among the stars. The universe was vast and full of mysteries, but they would explore it together, one star at a time.